Hey guys, Nemo here. How you doing? Well, I have a slight headache, but that's neither here nor there. What we're gonna be doing today is gonna be looking at the deck manager, and it's time for another episode in the series of building the deck. And this episode is building Ancient Wilds. So let's go into the deck manager and sort this mess out. Let's throw every single card in there and watch the numbers rise in the mana curve over there on the top. These cards are gonna go in there a little bit later on. You know how this works, right? Okay, so let's start from the top then, I guess. Or, well, it's the 1 mana costs, so I guess from the bottom. Either way, let's start with this Bond Beetle, the scarab looking fella sitting on a leaf there, and he's a blessing of luck, a beetle on your shoulder. I don't know if this guy is sitting on somebody's shoulder, but regardless, I don't think he's good enough for this deck. And this deck is a bit of a slow deck. Well, the way I've built it at least is a bit slow, so I don't like having these small dudes that don't really protect me too much. They don't draw me another card or whatever. This is not what I want from a dude in this build. He'd be alright in the more aggro-y type of build. Not sure if I'd add him there, but hey. Next card, Wild Growth. Giant Growth. For some reason I keep calling it Wild Growth. I don't know. Alright, so it's an instant, and it's an instant, yeah. It's an instant, and it's, well, I don't think it's good enough for the deck. Because it's not like Primal Bellow or something. +3/+3 is not always enough. And the decks that this deck has trouble against are decks like Pack Instinct or something, where your guys are gonna be too small anyways, and +3/+3 isn't big enough of a boost to win there, especially not if they have Primal Bellow. And decks like Obedient Dead, where it's not about combat tricks at all. It's about getting enough dudes on the field to survive all of his excuse me, all of his murders and stuff. And every time I've put this in the deck, I've come up into stuff where it's like, well, I want to draw a dude. Let's top deck. Oh, Giant Growth. Yay, I have no guys on the field. It's completely useless. So I don't think it's good enough. Definitely a card you want to add in the aggro version, obviously. But this is not the aggro version. That's not how I built it. Well, here's the key, I guess the central figure for the aggro version. This guy, we know him from 2012. He was awesome in the Elf deck. He was a straight up win condition. This deck, even when you build a deck around him, and I certainly have, and the deck works rather well, but even if you build a deck around him, then sometimes there's just not enough elves in this deck. So Juraga Warcaller not in there as well. And then there's these Taunting Elves, which if you draw 2 of them, then you're probably gonna lose, because you don't want to draw 2 of them. In fact, you don't even want to draw 1 of them. You want to get them with something else like Fauna Shaman or Natural Order. Or you want to draw 1 of them late game when you're stalled with the enemy. But really, this guy is there to once you're sitting in, once you're safe, once the enemy can't kill you anymore, you have the board locked up. That's when you want to drop Taunting Elf and swing for the win in the very next turn. It's great when you have Yiva out, because then it's nice when you have Yiva and Fauna Shaman out, because then you can always just end of his turn, he passes the turn, and you're like, I'll discard Vengevine or something, and I'll drop, and I'll go get Taunting Elf out of my deck, and I'll drop it at your end step. Yeah, GG bro, cause I'm about to untap and unleash the horde. That's always nice when you can do that, but you don't need 2 of them to be able to do that. So I take out 1 of them, and I keep 1 of them in there, cause this makes it a little bit less likely that I'm gonna draw them when I don't need them. He's a very nice win condition. He's very nice for what he does. So let's leave it at that. Okay, Elvish Visionary. This guy draws another card, and it's a 2-drop. And this deck doesn't have many 2-drops. You want to survive against goblins, you gotta have some 2-drops. You gotta have some early stuff. But of course, if you have early stuff like Juraga Warcaller or like this Bond Beetle, then that gives you card disadvantage, because it's not worth a card just yet. in this deck, because this is a late game deck, so you want to have card advantage to be able to win against the control-y decks. right? Because you want to win the control versus control matchups as well. So the good news is that this guy draws you a card, so he's not card disadvantage for you. So he's good in the control matchups. He's good against aggro decks because he blocks. He's great overall. 5 out of 5. Run all of them. There's no reason not to. There's just no reason not to. Fauna Shaman is also a very nice card. I just talked about the trick you have with Taunting Elf, but there's very many tricks you can do. And of course, it's always nice to have Fauna Shaman with Diva out, but I already said that. But look at this art too, by the way. Steve Prescott did a really good job here. Man, I love this. The idea of this, just she has so many talismans and stuff, and she wears the talismans of every creature she can evoke. She can evoke all of it, like this owl thingy over here, and this toad over here, and a bunch of like some voodoo mask dudes, and just all kinds of stuff. And there's birds in her hair. What the heck is even going on there? I don't know, but she kind of looks like a Death Knight, or I don't know. I like this, and look at these birds coming out of this blue smoke here. Just gotta love this art, really. And look at those. You see those parrots coming by there in the background? Nice. Rings? No. These are pretty bad. I don't care about this ring. I just wanna. It's the same as Giant Growth. If I'm not gonna be running Giant Growth, then I'm definitely not gonna run the rings, right? I wanna have a dude rather than some kind of like something that makes my guys bigger, because if I don't have a guy, then it's useless. So that's my thinking on that. Alright, so moving on to the Thornwheel Archer. Well, this guy is a 2-cost and 1 and yada yada. Reach. Oh, hey, reach. Okay, it's in. That's how I read him pretty much, because there's only 4 cards with reach in this deck. It's a green deck, you need reach. So this guy is a very aggressively casted card as well. Even without the reach, he'd be great because he has Death Touch. He's 2-1 for 2, so he's great against like every kind of deck, and he's great against flyers as well. So what more can you ask? These guys in twice, outrunning 4 times probably. But unfortunately, that's not the option. Well, I don't know, because the Elvish Visionary might be better than him, but really you want to run him. So. And then we move on to the Awakener Druid. Now this guy, I really like this guy. I really like this guy, but not in this deck, unfortunately. His ability is very powerful, but he himself is 1-1, so that's the first trouble. Well, he dies to a lot of things since he's a 1-1. If there's something he could die to, he will die to it. He only has 1 toughness. But aside from that, his ability is to give you a forest as a blocker and a fighter and stuff like that. I guess that's alright against aggro-y decks. But yeah, the 4-5 guy in Pack Instinct is really good. And this guy is similar, really, because he himself isn't really... You're never going to use himself in combat, but you're going to use the 4-5. But the problem with that is that this uses up a land if you want to actually attack with that guy. And I don't think or if you... I mean, you can block if you use land here, so... Still a land, you can still use the ability, but then you just have it 1-1 for free mana. You don't want to do that. And just from testing, I know that there's so many times where you just need all your lands and you need to be able to play all your stuff, because turn 4, the turn after this guy comes in, is when you really start cooking with this deck, so to speak. When you really start doing stuff with this deck, and you don't want to not be able to use one of your forests then, because that sets you back a turn. You don't want to be set back a turn, so I don't like Awakener Druid for that reason. But he is a very good card, and definitely would use him in the aggressive version of this deck, but we're not playing that version of this deck. So, Beast of Finn, very good card. It does give them a free green beast creature token. It's not too important. Sometimes it comes up that, like against goblins, obviously, whatever goblins they have aren't going to be as strong as the free green beast creature token, so it's going to be useless against that deck most of the time. But against most other decks, it's really good. You can get rid of anything you want, and it's just really powerful, really good. But you do have acidic slimes as well in this deck, so you can get rid of any other permanents other than creatures. So you're most likely just going to use the Beast of Fins on creatures. And you can also use this as a win condition sometimes, because the opponent might not expect you to have a free green beast as well. So sometimes you just hit up your own land, get an extra dude, and then suddenly you have lethal damage on board. which you can block, so you win that way. So it's good in a lot of different ways. Sometimes you turn your little Elvish Visionary into a beast token, into a free beast token, and suddenly block with it, and kill their 2/2 as well and get insane value out of that, which is really nice. But really there's not gonna be enough room to run all 3 of them. So I run 2 of them, and yeah, I almost feel like it's a really hard cut to make. I almost feel like there's no excuse not to run 3 of them. Really in this deck there is, because you'll see there's gonna be a lot of free drops that I do want to run. There's gonna be a lot of other guys that I do want to run, and there's just no room for it. So getting 2 of these in your hand is not that great. That's why I make the cut here, because drawing more than 1 beast to finish usually not always what you want. So Color of the Claw, amazing card, really good. In the aggro version this guy really shines, protects you against mass removal, stuff like that. Sometimes you can trick the opponent by blocking like an idiot on purpose, and then suddenly Color of the Claw. So really good card, but it doesn't fit well enough in the control deck. I tried running just 1 of them because I don't want to draw both of them. But then I just found out that, you know what, there's better free drops for the control version of this deck, and I don't always want to keep mana open to be able to react with Color of the Claw, and sometimes they get me when I'm tapped out. You can never predict accurately enough what the opponent's gonna do, so sometimes you just get unlucky with this guy. And there are other cards that are a little more reliable, and I like those better. And as you will see, like I said with the Beast of It, the cards that are in this deck really need to be in this deck. So there's just no room for him. I'm sorry, Color of the Claw. Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't even know what I'm doing there. Alright, so Carvin Caryatid. Hello, Carvin Caryatid. Why are there 2 of you? I don't know, but precast, 2/5 wall. And what do I say about walls? What have I said about walls in the past? Trinity of Elements, yeah. A wall is good if it draws you a card. This wall draws you a card, it's good. And as well, it's a 2/5 guy, free. You're probably gonna be losing ground to decks like Goblins. I know we talk about Goblins a lot, but Goblins is really the deck to beat, and especially with this deck. This deck is just so weak against Goblins. You want to be able to survive. And Goblins, of course, I say Goblins, but what I really mean is just aggro decks. You want to be able to survive, but you don't want those early plays to mean nothing against control decks. You don't want to get card disadvantage against another deck. Like if you're playing against Crosswinds or Obedient Dead, then sometimes it's all about how many cards you have, how many cards the opponent has, and sometimes you just need more guys to be able to survive the murders he has and all that. And the Carving Caryatid is great because it is a defender. It helps you survive against goblins, but it doesn't cost you a card because it draws you another card. Eternal Witness, I don't know what I'm even talking about anymore, but this card just has to be in the deck. If you don't run this card, then you probably don't understand how this deck works, but let's go over it anyway. Free cast, 2/1, sexy elf. No wait, it's a human. It's got you there. I don't get it though. Why is this a human? I have no idea. It's a human shaman. Maybe this comes from a set where there were no elves in, but really for this deck it makes no sense that it's a human. For the card either. Of course she is like a few thousand years old, so yeah. But yeah, she does have eternal youth, so she remembers every word spoken from the hero's oath to the baby's cry. Okay. Yeah, gotta have this in there. I talked about the flavor a lot, but I didn't even say what the card does. Well, Eternal Witness enters the battlefield. You may return target card from your graveyard to your hand. So what card would we return with that? And maybe and of course there are other cards that are great to get with this card, but yeah, you want to get that deck and use it again. Alright, next. So it's basically like having 3 natural orders in this deck rather than 2. And then we move on to the Mana Plasms and the Spawn Rise. Well, I would call this the aggro package yet again. These cards are great. Mana Plasm gets bigger when you cast a spell. You have to kind of invest in it, but it's worth it when you're running the aggro deck. It doesn't have trample though, which kind of is a shame, but usually they're gonna block it and lose a guy or something. So it's really good, but it is a 1/1. It does die to that card I was talking about earlier in Born of Flame. It does die to a lot of other things that just deal 1 damage. He's good with cards like Briarpack Alpha and Elvish Force Mage. He's great with those. But other than that, he's not that great in this version of the deck that I'm making right now. In the control version, he's not that great. You want to just keep surviving turn 3. You want to get more lands out. You want to draw more cards. You want to do stuff like that. So Manaplasm doesn't cut it there. Spawn Rife is a card that I'm really enthralled by. I love this card, really. I gotta tell you, I like his ability. When I first read him, I was like, oh, this guy is so sweet, man. If you ever get it off, then it's really nice. Then I was like, well, I'm gonna test him, but I expect him to never really work. But then I tested him, and he does work, actually. But, and here's the thing, you do have to invest in him. You do have to set up the ways to make it work. Like, for instance, if you have Spawn Rife out, you have a Beast within, then you can make him copy himself at least once. By attacking, the opponent blocks, you Beast within whatever you block with, and since this guy is trample, he then gets in for 2 damage, and you get a copy of him. And once you have 1 copy of him, then it starts to get easier. It starts to become a sliding scale. The more copies you start having, the more difficult it is for the opponent to deal with it. And they do have to keep guys back or kind of play around this guy, because he is a big threat. He is a threat. If he ever gets to copy himself, then he's probably gonna get in there a lot, and he's probably gonna be worth it for you. But he doesn't always get in there. He gets in there like, well, let's say 80% of the time, because you can make it work very well with this deck. You have a lot of tricks with this deck, so it's easy enough. And in the aggro deck, he's definitely like 200% worth running. This deck, he's almost worth running. He is the 61st card, literally, quite literally. He's the last card I took out of this deck. But he's gotta go. There's no room for him, unfortunately. Just no room for him. Yeah. I was taken out like a Viridian, an Elvish Visionary, just because I like this guy so much. I didn't want to take him out. But then I was like, there's really just no excuse to take out an Elvish Visionary in this deck. It draws you another card. It's just too good. And I do have to put work into the Spawn Rife. So I'm sorry, Spawn Rife. I love you, man. Okay, Wood Elves draws you and gets you another forest. You gotta run these guys, because you get land screwed with this deck too much if you don't run these guys. And they help you not get land screwed. That's great in a deck like this that has a lot of, and because we have natural order, we're gonna run a lot of big drops, even more than Obedient Dead. Well, not more than Obedient Dead, but they cost more in this deck. So we want to get more lands out there so that we can actually hardcast them in case we don't get the natural order. And also it helps with something that's really interesting, is that it helps with Acidic Slime. Sometimes Acidic Slime isn't worth it because he comes out turn 5 and he's not fast enough to be able to do its job well enough. And having the Wood Elves turn 3 means that you can drop Acidic Slime turn 4, then you can drop Erratic Portal turn 5 and start returning your slime and playing it again. So that means that since you can do all of that 1 turn earlier, means that sometimes you can actually get people with the Acidic Slime and just destroying the lands. Because turn 5 is a little bit too late, but turn 4 is possible if the opponent doesn't have the best start. Of course, that's all being queued and all, but yeah, Acidic Slime destroying the lands is an option with this deck. It's definitely an option with the deck, but it's not something that you want to always do. It's not the prime directive of this deck, I would say. But it is a very interesting option, and Wood Elves helps facilitate that option. Elvish Force Mage is good when you have Eva out. It's terrible when you don't, unless you have Taunting Elf. Other than that, it's only good if you can trick the opponent with it. This doesn't happen if the guy doesn't have Flash, so I don't think Elvish Force Mage is good enough. Of course, in the aggro version, might run this guy. Well, probably will, because he's an elf. Again, we are not running the aggro version. So, Master Oak is terrible. Didn't run this in 3-folk deck, won't run it here. I noticed that we are on the forecast, guys, so let's add the rest of these in there. Oh, sorry, bro. You thought he was gonna get back in there. Yeah, and I said no. And look at how sad he's looking now. Oh, so sad, so sad. All right, 4-drop land, Briarpack Alpha, aggro package, not in here. This guy is really, really good though. I like him a lot, but as you'll see, there are so many 4-drops that I just cannot say no to, that have to be in this deck, that there's just no room for Briarpack Alpha. Well, Erratic Portal, I can talk about it real short, gotta be in this deck. This card is insanely broken, that's awesome, and really facilitates this deck, just as Natural Order does. And to get these 2 Erratic Portals together with the Natural Orders, 2 Natural Orders, really what I would call the backbone of this deck. And if you don't draw any of them, then you don't have as good as a start as you would like to have. So you gotta run these Erratic Portals, and you can do so many tricks with this thing. You can block, then return the blocker to your hand, get some more value out of the blocker when you play it again. Of course, it works really well with this deck because all of your cards, well, most of them, have something that happens when they enter the battlefield, so getting them back and playing them again is really good. And then there's some cards that also do stuff when they leave the battlefield, such as Frag Tusk. You get a free when you return it to your hand. Just so much value you can get with the Erratic Portal. Most of the time you're gonna drop this when you have 5 mana out rather than 4. I was almost gonna say turn 4, but if you camp up with the Wood Elves, then you can play this turn 4, because then you'll have 5 mana. So yeah, but then you can immediately return something, and sometimes that really opponent isn't counting on it, and even if they are counting on it, they have to leave 2 lands open all the time when this is down. Because if they have just 1 land open, then end of their turn you return the guy. They say, I'll pay 1 mana, right? And then it's your turn, and you do it again. So they have to leave 2 mana open if they really want their guy to stay on the battlefield. It's really important. It slows opponents down so much by having to do that, and you don't really care if they do leave the mana open, because then you're just gonna be returning your own dudes and getting value out of that. So it's always very dangerous for the opponent, and even when they work around it, you still have a very useful, solid play to make with the Erratic Portal. So it's so powerful, so good, gotta be in the deck. Gnar doesn't have trample, I don't care. Well, Momentous Fall, I wanted to zoom in, I don't know why I clicked on it. Momentous Fall is a card that many people will say has to be in this deck. I say no. Look at all these guys early on, right? All the guys you play before turn 4, none of these are worth casting Momentous Fall on. So basically you're gonna cast this after turn 4. But the main thing when you want to use it is when like you have a big dude out, and it's like your plan B, I guess, sort of. You can have something big out and you're dominating the field, and then the opponent has a murder for it or something, and you just go, nope, Momentous Fall. You draw 7 cards, gain a bunch of life, so you're probably gonna live that turn, and just from drawing the 7 cards you're gonna have something good to play, so you're probably gonna win the game anyway at that point. But that is what I would call the definition of like a win more card, or well, maybe not totally win more, but still, it's wouldn't you rather just have another good card, like just have more chance to draw a Natural Order, or you know, because that's good even if you don't draw that first big guy, because you're not guaranteed to draw the first big guy. If you don't, then Momentous Fall doesn't help. So I don't like these here, and yeah, they're okay though. I think you're probably gonna be able to play around them, but I don't want to be playing around them. I just want to play something that is guaranteed to be good. Stuff like well, Natural Order. Here you go. Best card in the game. Natural Order is insane. I was gonna say Momentous Fall again. Why? Goodbye, Momentous Fall. You're not in there. Love this art, by the way. The cheetah beating up the monkey, and now he's the king of the woods. He's the new guy. So yeah, it's the Natural Order, the way of things, the new predator. Yeah, the price of Mangara's freedom was Esmira's life. So I guess this is Esmira and this is Mangara. Whatever. This card is insanely broken nuts awesome. what if I was to tell you that you don't even need to draw your big 8 cost guy that wins you the game? No, you don't need to draw it. It just has to be in your deck. And you don't have to pay 8 mana for it. How about 4? Yeah. That's what this card does. It gets you your biggest dude, and you can even choose which one. So you can choose whichever one you need for that particular situation. It's gonna be great. Natural order is just insane, and really good. So definitely include them in here. Let's just move on here. The Roaring Primodox was gonna be, well, this seemed to be the backbone of the deck, like the one thing that this deck really wants to do. Bounce back its creatures, get more value out of them, and I can see how that works really well, but not well enough. Well, it works really great with the Erratic Portal, obviously. Because Erratic Portal you can return whenever you want. You can return something when he targets it with removal. You can return after blocking. You can return their guys if they tap out. So that gives you so much more options. That Erratic Portal is always good. Whereas Roaring Primodox isn't always good. Because they could just kill the other guy, and then you return Roaring Primodox to your hand. And then you're not even making progress because you're playing Roaring Primodox again the next turn. And nothing is really happening, and the other guy is advancing his board state in the meanwhile. So Roaring Primodox sets you up for failure, basically. It's just one of the first cards that I was like, no, just no. So 4 times no, not in there. Then there's Vengevine, which is obviously an insane card and has to be in there. Yes, you have to work around this a little bit to get it to work, but it's always gonna work basically. And it's so easy to work around as well. And this card is worth working around because he has haste, so he comes down and immediately attacks. So just being, like I said earlier, haste is very important in this deck. This deck kind of misses it, so having a guy that does have haste is really nice. If you have Vengevine in hand and Yiva, then probably you're gonna play Yiva first. But he's still good even without the haste. But the haste just pushes him over the top, you know, makes him insanely good value for this deck. And then there's the Wolfbriar Elemental, which is really good. And again, this fits with the Roaring Primodox. You can return it to hand, play him again, get a lot of value out of it. But in the end, there's gonna be better plays to make, and you're not always gonna be able to have the mana to even use this guy correctly. And there's just better stuff you can do. So he doesn't get into the build. I'm sorry, Wolfbriar Elemental. I really like the guy, but just not good enough, you know. And that's saying a lot about the value of cards in this deck, that Wolfbriar Elemental doesn't make it. Wow, I'm trying to zoom in on the Wolfbriar Elemental, Yiva. I don't know what you're trying to do with me, but it's creeping me out, and you should probably not do that. You look a little too old for me. Yeah. Anyways, Wolfbriar Elemental. I'm not convinced in this. Yeah, Wolfbriar Elemental is just one of those cards. When I was first unlocking this deck and trying it out and testing it, I was like, Wolfbriar Elemental is the best card ever, and it's gonna be insane in this deck. But unfortunately, that's just not the way it works. And mainly the reason is that you have enough plays to make that you don't need. Like, he's good in a situation where you get mana flooded and you don't have much to do, and that's really great in the previous game. That happened a lot. In this game, the decks are powerful enough that if you get mana flooded, you're probably gonna lose anyway, and you won't get to play your Wolfbriar Elemental or whatever. So there it goes. And Yiva obviously has to be in there. Like I was talking about earlier, haste is important. Well, the flash from Yiva is basically like having a better type of haste, because you can drop stuff at their end step and it'll kind of be like your guys' haste. So that's really good. And being able to get that surprise combat damage in is really important for this deck. Actually, you have to be able to trick the opponent. Well, I don't think that comes as a surprise to anybody, but she's really good, and obviously this is her deck. She has to be in there. She shines in this deck. So it's kind of like having 4 guys with haste in there, I guess. So we move on to the 5-drops, and here are Acidic Slimes. Like I talked about a little earlier, Acidic Slimes are great in just a good guy overall to have. Like, it has Death Touch, so it's never a dead card in your hand. And it can destroy land, so it sets them back a turn. And when it comes in handy is when they do have an artifact or enchantment that is important, that you want to get rid of stuff like No Mercy and whatever. In this card, this deck can actually afford to run its enchantment and artifact removal, because it's one card that still does something even when they don't have an artifact or an enchantment out there. And besides, aside from all of these like general uses that this card can have, it also is a win condition when they're mana screwed, because you can just start blowing up the lands. Sometimes you have the bounce thing out there, and you can start returning your acidic slime, playing it again, and that's a really fun way to win a game. But it's not something I would count on, definitely not. And it's not why acidic slime is in the deck. Acidic slime is in the deck because it's enchantment, artifact removal. It still does something when it doesn't destroy an artifact or enchantment. I would have liked him to be 4-drop, but of course at a 4-drop he would be way too insanely powerful. So 5-drop, still really good. Overrun is a card that, yeah, I don't run this card. Don't run this deck aggro wise, but it does get into a lot of stalemates, and Overrun is just a way to say, well, I'm sick of this, here I win. And it does a lot of work. Overrun is just really good in this deck, and I guess thematically it would fit more if the card that is in Pack Instincts would be in this deck, and Overrun would be in Pack Instinct. Thematically that would fit, but I'm happy they didn't do that, because this deck needs to trample. Most of these guys don't already have trample. Pack Instincts does already have trample, and you don't have stuff like Taunting Elf, which makes them block you, and sometimes you really want that. But anyways, Overrun is definitely really good just because it does give you trample, and you just win games with this card all the time. Like I have yet to draw this card and be like, oh man, Overrun, shit. Sting of Fling Spider, I talked a little bit about this when we got to the other guy with Death Touch and Reach. But you want to have every card with Reach in this deck. And sometimes, okay, sure, there are going to be matchups where it's not great, but it's still a good wall, a 2-5 dude, even in that matchup. And I was running just one of them because of that, but in the end, the decks that you want Reach against are decks that have a lot of flyers, like a lot. Like Crosswinds, for instance. Oops, some commercial for my antivirus there. Anyways, yeah. Anyways, you want to have a lot of Reach. So I have all these cards in there, and I can tutor for it. I need to. Sometimes I have to discard the one Sting of Fling Spider early on with the Fana Shaman, and I'm happy that there's another one in the deck that I can still tutor for. Sometimes I actually have to get all 4 of my Reach guys just to be able to survive against like Exalted or something like that. I had the same thing with the Taunting Elf, where I'm only running one of them, but and I really do want to run 2 of them. There's just no room for it. I do think there's room for the Sting of Fling Spider, because it's still good even when you don't have the Reach going on. So that's why it's in there, and most decks do have at least 1 flyer. So yeah. Anyways, Fractusk is a really good guy. Also gain 5 life when he comes on the field, and a free green beast token when he leaves the field. I want to run 3 of these, but I can't. Look at my 5-drops. These are all the 5-drops I have. And you know where this is going. We've got 9 5-drops, and we don't want to run so many 5-drops. So in the end, you have to get rid of 1 Fractusk and 1 Acidic Slime. And we run 2 Acidic Slimes, 2 Sting of Fling Spiders, and 2 Fractusk. And I believe that's the best way to do it. And you gotta run this Overrun, because it just wins you games. So that's the way I do it. And you can still, since you have 2 of each of them, you can still get the other one with Wild Pair now. So that's really at least nice. Of course, if you draw both of them, then you can't do that, which does happen sometimes. You can't really combat that. Sometimes you draw the thing you want in natural order, or a wild pair for, or whatever, and it's kind of sad like that. But at least there's enough options with this deck that it isn't always a death sentence for you. So Lurking Predators is 6 cost. It comes out, and you have to tap out to play this, and then sometimes it just doesn't do anything. You're probably losing the game because this is a slower deck than most. So the opponent doesn't have to play anything, so it doesn't have to fall into this trap. And Lurking Predators, even when the opponent does have to play something and you make a lot of effort that the opponent does have to play something the turn after this, then even then it can just flip over a land and you're gonna be sad and it doesn't do anything. And you can't really work with it as well as you... Come on, I'm trying to zoom in on Lurking Predators, not on you, Primordial says. I'm gonna get to you, okay? I'm gonna get to you, mister. Be calm there. But yeah, you can't really work toward it as well as you can work toward like wild pair, because you are in charge of whether or not you get the wild pair to work, whereas the opponent is in charge of whether or not the lurking predators gets to work. So I don't like lurking predators as much as I like wild pair for that reason. And then we get to the Primordial Sage, which is a 4/5, blah 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 blah. Its ability isn't as good as Soul of the Harvest, and he's not as big as Soul of the Harvest, and he doesn't have trample as Soul of the Harvest does. So nope, thank you. And even the Soul of the Harvest, I just don't have a room for it, so it's also gonna go, because I want to run these wild pairs, and as you're gonna see later, I need to run enough of these big dudes, so there's no room for the Soul of the Harvest. I really like the guy, and sometimes he's really good to tutor up, but unfortunately not gonna make it to for my deck build. Wild pair is simply better, so I want to run wild pairs, and that's how the way it goes. So Worm Reaver Coil. Wait. Well, I'm gonna talk about wild pair in a second, guys. Worm Reaver Coil is a 6-cost enchantment. I don't know what it's doing in this deck. This isn't like Auramancer or whatever. So I'm already like, I guess it has to be good if I want to run it. But it just gives my dude a 6/6/6. Why don't I just get a worm that's a 6/6? In fact, why don't I just get Soul of the Harvest instead? Now what do you? Well, I guess it does get haste since you enchant a dude that's already on the field. But most of my guys don't have trample. This thing doesn't give it trample, so they can just jump block it anyway. And then they murder it while you're tapped out. So they 2-for-1 you. And then it has some other ability. Cost you 3. Sacrifice Worm Reaver Coil, put a 6/6 green worm creature token on the battlefield. Yeah. Why isn't this just like, it would be good if this was like a 6/6 green worm creature token with haste. Then this would be good. That's what I want, but that's sadly not what this is. So I'd have to do a lot of energy to get that worm token that I eventually want. Yeah, you can 2-for-1 him, I guess, if they try to murder it when you do have the mana up. But really, when is that gonna happen? That's only gonna happen when they top deck the murderer turn late, and you can't rely on that happening. So what's mostly gonna happen is that you enchant some dude and they kill it. While this is resolving, or when it's on there, it doesn't even have Umbra on it, so you don't get the dude when they kill it or whatever. You have to actually activate this in response, and you don't have the mana up because this costs 6 mana. Like, why am I even still talking about this? Get it gone, get it out of there. Okay, Elder Scale Worm is a win condition against certain decks. Really good against like goblins. If you chew this up, they probably don't have an answer for it. Could be good against Born of Flame. Sometimes you want to look at how many cards they have in their hand and the amount of land they have in the field, because this version of the burn deck, unlike the other burn deck that was in the previous game, this burn deck can actually kill 7/7. So sometimes you'd rather just get this guy because it gains your life when it comes in the field, so you're safe even if they kill it, and draws you a card when they kill it. So sometimes Black Worm is better. But if they have like only 5 lands on the field and they have only 1 card in hand by the time you get the Elder Scale Worm, then obviously Elder Scale Worm is better because they're never going to be able to kill it, because they're just down on card advantage so much. And even if they do kill it, then they're probably not going to have anything to kill you. So basically in those kind of situations, then Elder Scale Worm is better. Otherwise, you might want to think about getting Black Worm instead, just to be a little bit safer, because if they do kill the Elder Scale Worm, then you're only at 7 life after that, so they can't kill you. Chaos Revenge is really good against, of course, the burn deck. If you are safe for the life total, if your life total is good enough, then this is great, because they can't burn it. Nothing can target this except green stuff. So against any deck that isn't green, Chaos Revenge is great. And this guy is haste, which this deck lacks. Really good, really good. Getting this guy out there on turn 4 with the natural order, they're probably beating in on you, so they don't have guy back. So you get this guy out and you suddenly smash him for 8 damage, and yeah, that wins you a lot of games. So this guy is insanely good. He'd be great if he had trample, but obviously trample is insane anyway. And yeah, I mean, he would be so overpowered if he had trample, especially in this deck. You can get him out turn 4. Black Worms, I want to run both of them, just to give me more chance of drawing them. Just to give me, if I have to get rid of one of them, then I have more chance of actually still getting one. And I want to run 4 of these 7 drops anyways, so I need enough big guys. So both of them are in there. And then we get to the Gigantomancer and the Terrestodon. Well, we'll get to these in a second, but I want to talk about these first. Because this is a 9 cost spell. Okay, 9 cost spell, put 4 +1/+1 counters on each creature you can draw. Well, Overrun is better, okay. And this costs 9, so I'm never gonna play it for 9. Because I have game winners at 7 and 8. Okay. Then there's a Cycling for 6, okay. Put 4 +1/+1 counters on target creature. But what else can I play for 6? Wild Pair wins me the game. Never mind then. So this card basically does absolutely nothing. You don't want to play it for 6, you don't want to play it for 9. No thank you, sir. Goodbye. Yeah, it does cycle into something else, but for 6 mana, that's cycling isn't even good at 6 mana, unless the card itself is really good. Primal Surge, if you get to resolve this, then probably gonna win you the game, but it's 10 mana, and even then it can fail, so no thanks. Alright, so at the 8 drops, we have a bunch of 7 drops that are really good, so what I'm looking for is just one of these. And one of these that is pretty much guaranteed to win me the game a lot of the time, and I don't think having both of them in there is good, because you only really need to sometimes tutor, and it's really the choice of which one is better for being able to win the game for you. And if you these guys are so big, 7 cost is still likely that you're gonna get to 7 lands thanks to like stuff like Wood Elves, but these guys at 8 mana isn't very likely that you're gonna be able to hardcast them. So you're really only looking at the tutor for that is guaranteed to pretty much win you the game. And out of these, they're both pretty foolproof when you tutor them up, but I like the Gigantomancer a little bit better. In testing it served me a little bit more purpose, and there's less chance to screw up with the Gigantomancer, whereas the Terrastodon, sometimes you blow up the lands and they have enough creatures then, and they have something with haste or some kind of boost, and they kill you with the free freeze that you gave them. Sometimes you just there's not always enough targets for the Terrastodon. Sometimes you have to blow up your own lands and you're screwing yourself, and it's just not foolproof enough. Gigantomancer will win you those games. It's a little bit more foolproof. Oh, and then we have to make one final cut, and that's gonna be one wild pair, because having 3 wild pairs is a little bit much. And yeah, because this way the mana curve is nice and sweet as well. So I only have 2 6 cost in there, but the 7 costs to be 4, because they're so good and you can tutor for them. So they are so powerful that I want all of these. So we only have room for 2 wild pairs, and that's okay, because if you draw more than 1 wild pair in a game, you're probably gonna lose you the game. You don't need more than 1 wild pair. I only ever want to draw 1 of them. So, but they are powerful enough that I want to get more chance to draw 1 of them, having only 1 of them in the deck. So basically that's kind of like a compromise. So we only run 2 of them. Good enough that way. And as you can see, a lot of cards in this deck have turned out to be two of a kind, like 2 Pelacca Worms, 2 Wild Pairs, 2 Fractusks, 2 Stingerfling Spiders, 2 Acidic Slimes, 2 Vengevines, 2 Natural Orders, 2 of these. So there is even 2 Beast of Fins. Yeah, a lot of 2-offs, and the reason for that is Wild Pair itself, because you can get the other one when you need it. So that's how the deck works. That's how I've got it set up. And let's look at my mana curve as the last little thing. Got 7, 7, 7, and 7, and 1 and 6. Oh, this Taunting Elf is kind of ruining the symmetry in this deck. He's taunting me with it. Oh, you dang Taunting Elf! How dare you taunt me? Your little 1 here instead of being a 2-drop and having 7, 7, 7, 7, 7. Oh, how dare you! How dare you! He's really good at taunting. He's even taunting me when I'm making this deck and adding him into it. You Taunting Elves. Anyways, the reason that this is a little top heavy, this is a weird curve, is because you can tutor up your stuff with Fauna Shaman, a Natural Order, and Eternal Witness. So it's basically like having four Natural Orders in the deck. Hi guys, Nemo here again. I thought I was done with this deck build, but as it turns out, I'm not. There's one last change that needs to be made. This Gigantomancer right here has to come out of this deck, because I've been drawing him way too much, and I don't really want to draw him. I just want to tutor him up with Natural Order. That was the idea of putting him in here. To have something that was just really big and was guaranteed to pretty much win you the game. That you can get with Natural Order, but unfortunately I keep drawing this guy. I don't know what's up with that, but Maybe it's because he's one of the promo cards that I don't know. But as it turns out, I don't really like drawing this guy, so I don't want him in the deck for that reason. And I guess he's kind of a win more card anyway, because if you want to get an explosive win, then that's what Chaos Revenge is for anyway. So, and you have to wait a turn anyway if you want to get Giganomancer. So I don't know. I guess he's kind of a win more card anyway. I don't mind not having him, but I thought he'd be a good addition to the deck. But as it turns out, I draw him way too much. I draw him more than Natural Order, and there's 2 Natural Orders in the deck, but there's only 1 Giganomancer. I could have just been unlucky, but even without that, it made me think about him a little more and made me realize that he's not a good addition to the deck. And Soul of Harvest is actually a much better addition to the deck, because it's a 6 cost guy, and I was kind of missing a 6 drop anyways. So rather than adding another wild pair, which would give me 3 wild pairs, which would give me a big chance of drawing 2 wild pairs when I don't want to, because having 2 wild pairs is kind of just useless. Instead of that, I would like to just add this Soul of the Harvest, and in theory he's better than a wild pair because he's a 6/6 guy, as well as having a good ability. But of course, this guy is much easier to get rid of, especially when you're playing against the black deck, whereas they have nothing that can actually get rid of an enchantment. But yeah. Anyways, he is a very good guy, so even without his ability, he's still a 6/6 trample guy for 6. That's not terrible, you know. That's worth running anyways. So that's a last little edit I made to the deck, and I think it's gonna be for the better. Gotta tell you though, I really like how this deck has been turning out, so I think it's pretty much perfect the way it is right now. So that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Please like, rate, comment, and subscribe. My name has been Nemo, and my name will still be Nemo next time. See you then.